Hi, my name's Debbie Sever, and I'm with Carol Thompson today. Carol has been selected as our Hero of the Month for Pet Guardians. Carol is an outstanding pet guardian, so we chose her as our hero and for what she does. So, Carol, I'm just going to ask you if you could tell us a little bit about who you are.
I'm an aerospace engineer by training and profession. I got an opportunity to go to the Naval Academy and then to MIT to get an advanced degree, and I've had a wonderful career for, a long time, since 1980 as an engineer developing rockets and satellites.
Wow.
But my passion has always also been for animals. And the training I got as an engineer has actually allowed me to look at medicine for animals in a systems engineering perspective, a holistic approach. And when I've been trying to help my cats and my rescue cats, I found that conventional medicine just didn't give me enough possibilities to help them. So I've reached out into the alternative medicine fields and was lucky enough to find out about ozone back in 2010.
Okay.
So it actually came from a legend in the holistic veterinary medicine field, Dr. Carvel Tiekert. And I think you have him on your website. He founded the American Veterinary, that's right, American Holistic Veterinary Medical Association.
Yeah, the AHVMA, yep.
And when I found him, he's semi-retired, but he took a liking to helping me with some of my more challenging cases.
Okay. And Carol, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You have started something with cats, a foundation. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's called the Kevin Memorial Foundation, and it's named after a little kitten. I still cry every time I think about him. In the Navy, I would move from place to place. And the first place I always looked for was a farm for my horse. And I found this incredible farm, 200 acres, beautiful, huge stalls, green pastures. And the owners had just bought it, and there were cats and kittens everywhere. Nothing was spayed and neutered. So I started trying to help her, get the population under control. And they were all inbred. So they had all sorts of health issues. And this one little kitten, black and white, he and my horse became best friends. I mean, completely, utterly bonded to each other. He would sleep in my horse's feed tub. My horse would kind of stand guard over him. But he kept having neurological issues. So I would take him to the vet. They couldn't figure out what it was. They finally named it hypereosinophilic syndrome, which means they don't know, but the immune system is basically destroying itself.
Okay.
So I found a homeopathic vet who was willing to work with my conventional vet, and I love my conventional vet. I actually went to her for 30 years. She just retired, but they did everything they could, and we couldn't save him.
Okay.
I was at work one day, and I had a bad feeling, so I rushed home, and he was at the door waiting for me, and I kind of kidded myself that, he's fine, don't worry about it. 5 minutes later, he had a grand mal seizure, and we couldn't bring him out of it.
I'm so sorry.
He passed at 1.5 years. But at that point, I kind of went, I need to find something else to help him.
Sure.
And it took me a long time to really find experts in the alternative medicines that were willing to work with conventional medicine, because there's no one silver bullet. They all have to work together. So.
Is that how you got started with ozone then? Was kind of you wanted to try something alternative, and you stumbled on ozone, and the doctor or the AHVMA helped you with that, I'm assuming. And so what types of ozone therapy have you administered to your cats at the Kevin Memorial Foundation?
Yeah, we've done a lot. Mostly I do them at home now. Dr. Tiekert had taught me how to do rectal in his office for the first cat that really I treated. She had an injection site sarcoma. And Dr. Tiekert and Dr. Roman consulted together and decided that rectal was the best way to go for her. But they wanted it 3 times a day. And Dr. Tiekert is 2 hours away from me. So that wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
Dr. Tiekert, being Dr. Tiekert, he sent his ozone generator home with me. He told me, "You can do it, Carol. Don't worry. I have confidence in you." The first time I did it, I'm like, "Oh, I'm never going to be able to do this." I mean, this is a cat who did not want to be pilled, didn't want a whole lot of attention. And she's a long hair, so I mean, she's got all the, and she allowed me to do it 3 times a day for the first week and then down to twice. The tumor was, this is pretty impressive, it was 41 by 44 millimeters when we first started treating her. And that was right in December of 2019. Today, I can't even find it.
Wow.
It is, basically her body has shrunk it and encapsulated it so much that we can find it on an x-ray as a little dot, but I can't find it. I can't find it. So that was sort of my first me doing it at home.
Great.
The next one was a cat I pulled from the shelter during COVID. Right when COVID started, cats were being euthanized. The shelters were closing, and anything that was not really adoptable was having to be euthanized because the staff couldn't get to the shelter. She had been there for 2 years. Her owner had died. The family didn't want her. And she was not just physically in bad shape, but she was mentally just totally depressed. So the shelter asked me if I could take her. She had chronic sinusitis, stomatitis, horrible ear infections, fungal infections on her skin. But she was the sweetest cat you've ever met. And she just, I took her first to my conventional vet. We did a couple of dentals, we did nasal flushes, we did baths. And at that point, I didn't have an ozone machine myself. I'd already taken Dr. Tiekert's back to him. So I called him and he said, "Well, you can do this. Why don't you try it yourself?" So I contacted you. I bought my very first generator. And at the same time, I bought one from my conventional vet because the treatment was ongoing and I wanted her to have one at the same time. So the cat's name was Sugar, and she was so mouth shy and head shy that I was wondering, okay, how am I going to actually, so I figured I'd do rectal. But I actually got a feeling from her that maybe inhaled would be better. So I got a little pediatric oxygen mask, and believe it or not, I sent you a picture of her. She would wear that for 5 minutes at a time, up to 10, 15, and look out the window and wear it. The very first time we did a long, like 10-minute inhaled after bubbling it through the olive oil, it's going to sound gross to you, but it was the best thing I've ever seen. She basically ejected this huge mass of mucus. And despite the fact we had already flushed her sinuses 4 times before we actually started the ozone, that was the turning point in her chronic sinusitis. It actually got better from there, and she was perfectly willing to do that twice a day.
That's awesome.
Looking out the window, wearing her little mask, and walk around a little bit and sit back down, look out the window. I was amazed. Dr. Tiekert had told me that chronic sinusitis is one of the hardest things to ever treat, just because at some point the nasal basically turns into Swiss cheese, the passages, and the bacteria, Calvin, gets embedded in there and you can't flush it out. So the ozone gas, which was actually not ozone, but the ozonates,
through the oil,
was able to penetrate in there and kill the bacteria. So we totally resolved her sinusitis in about 2 months.
Wow.
With just inhaled ozone.
That is so awesome. That's awesome. So you've done rectal and you've done inhalation. Have you done any other types of ozone that you think were beneficial or that you would recommend to other people? And would you recommend ozone to pet guardians at home to do this themselves to ill pets?
Yeah, definitely. We treated corneal ulcers just with ozonating some eye wash, buffered eye wash. Naturally, it happened on a Friday, on a holiday weekend, with a 16-year-old retired barn cat who didn't really like people. So the option was take her to the emergency vet, which was going to be a disaster, or try to treat it at home. So I ozonated some buffered saline. Took 3 days until they resolved the corneal ulcer.
Wow. Wow.
With a 16-year-old cat. Yeah, so that was impressive, absolutely impressive. We use it for every dental. We ozonate, just actually distilled water and do the rinses during dentals. So that's why I gave my conventional vet an ozone machine. And she uses it for most of her dentals now. She hasn't gotten into as much about the other uses, but she's very much into using it to flush wounds out and to do either saline in the nasal flushes or doing dentals. I am pretty much, that's about the extent of my expertise. I haven't gone too much further than the rectal and the, but I will tell you, I use it for myself.
Yeah, yeah.
I actually had chronic bronchitis back from when I was 18, 19 years old at the Naval Academy. And I would every year go into horrible breathing issues a couple of times into the hospital. I started using just the inhaled ozone for me back during COVID. I haven't been sick at all. So my bronchitis has totally resolved.
It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
It's amazing. And it's so easy. So I do recommend that any pet parent who has an animal that has a chronic condition or one that they're just having trouble managing, it's so easy.
Yeah.
The hardest part for me was actually finding the oxygen, but you guys helped me with that. And the rest of it is just amazingly easy. The best success story is the first one, the very first one, which was an FIP kitten that Dr. Teeker treated. And the latest one is another FIP kitten that we're treating, as well as an old 15-year-old cat who had chronic ear infections and a tumor on the inside of his ear canal. And we're treating him with just ozone gas directly into his ear. So it's actually an amazing modality that I use with other alternatives like near IR therapy, pulse magnetic, homeopathy. What else do we use? And conventional medicine. So it's works together. Ozone will never interfere with other treatments, but it can, one, make them feel better. Even if it doesn't cure something, it can help oxygenate the tissue, it can oxygenate the lungs. It can just make them have a little bit more energy. It can just make their quality of life better.
Yes.
And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned in my years of rescue is animals really live in the moment. They don't think about 2 or 3 weeks in the future. They don't think about what'll happen if. They want to be happy and feel good right now. They don't understand the fact that sometimes a treatment, like a major surgery, may make them feel better eventually. They just know they hurt right now.
Right.
And ozone doesn't do that to them. It doesn't hurt them in the moment.
Right.
It feel better.
It's gentle. Yes.
It's gentle, and it helps with oxygenating the tissue, which in turn helps the blood flow, and just gives them if nothing else, feeling better.
Yeah, exactly. Carol, we really want to thank you for what you do, first of all. You're amazing. What you do for these poor kitties that would not have a chance is give them life and love. And someone that does that has a heart of gold, and we truly, truly appreciate you. And you are truly, truly a hero to us. So we thank you for what you do. And we also thank you for meeting with me today and doing this interview. It was a pleasure. So
Thank you.
thank you. Thanks so much, Carol.